I've been telling you pretty much since the day the Kings offseason began that I expect DeMar DeRozan to be gone. I still expect that. But what if the Kings don't move on from DeRozan? Could it work? How do they make it work? Frankie Cartoscelli from SacTown Sports 1140 joins me to discuss that, plus how interested the Kings should be in moving into the first round, maybe trading for a late first round draft pick in the draft that's already next week. We'll discuss it all right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all off-season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. Frankie Cartoscelli, been a friend of mine here in the Kings media landscape for a long time. We used to work together back at SacTown Sports 1140. He's been a featured, frequent guest here on the Locked On Kings podcast for years upon years upon years. I always look forward to talking to Frankie, and together we're going to explore the possibility of DeMar DeRozan remaining a Sacramento King. I'll share with you like the only real scenario where I can see that happening, like what it would take for the Kings to not trade DeMar and keep him here. And Frankie and I will explore that. Plus, Frankie shares his thoughts on whether or not the Sacramento Kings should go star hunting and look for a big move versus more of the boring moves that we talked about on yesterday's Locked On Kings podcast. I say boring as in just not as exciting as going out and getting a star like a Marcus Smart trade, for example. We'll discuss that, and we'll talk a little bit about the possibility of the Kings trading into the first round of the draft. I'm actually going to have a Rafael Barlow, who's one of the best NBA draft analysts out there. He's going to be joining me on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Kings. We're going to dive deep into the idea of moving into the later first round and what names who are projected to be available at that spot in the draft that the Kings should be keeping tabs on, or that would make sense for the Kings to go out and get. So I'm looking forward to that conversation with Rafael. But for right now, please enjoy my chat with the one and only Frankie Cartoscelli. I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Frankie Cartoscelli, but I have been operating not just with the expectation, but with the certainty this offseason that the Sacramento Kings and DeMar DeRozan are parting ways. But of course, nothing is certain. We know DeMar DeRozan is a very, very good basketball player. In fact, you look at his numbers last season, you compare it to his entire career, and he was last year for the Sacramento Kings what he has been his entire career. So out of all the things that were crazy and uncertain last year for the Kings, DeMar was arguably the most consistent part. Again, I'm operating under the belief that DeMar DeRozan is gone. But we're going to explore a little bit of what potentially it could look like if DeMar is still here, and if the Kings and DeRozan try and make it work, even if it's just until the trade deadline. How have you been operating with the belief of whether or not DeMar DeRozan will be in a Sacramento Kings uniform when we're at training camp here in October?
Matt, good to talk to you again, man. And it's fun to kind of dive into these topics. And it does seem like DeMar DeRozan is kind of at the front of every Kings fan's mind right now. And it's hard not to feel that way because, I mean, from a quote unquote trade chip standpoint, I think DeMar DeRozan is probably one of the Kings' shiniest, assets they can part with. And I feel it the same as you. It's been hard to kind of not feel that kind of hunch that this is probably the end of the line for them. I think it makes too much sense for the Kings to go in another direction and kind of reshape their offense, especially their post-De'Aaron Fox offense, who, ideally they brought DeRozan in to kind of be a complementary piece. And it turns out that those two didn't really mesh as well as we thought. So I am operating with that mindset that he's the player the Kings are looking to move in all these rumored deals or rumored trades that, that there are reports coming out that the Kings are kicking the tires and all these guards and other players around the league. I haven't really opened my mind up that much to the idea that they might be able to go forward together until even like today. I saw that Mason Jones posted a story that DeRozan himself and Zach LaVine are working out at USC with Eric Musselman. I mean, obviously we know that DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, they go back to Chicago, and it sounded like when the De'Aaron Fox trade went down, one of the main reasons why DeRozan didn't also kind of push to be rerouted as well is because of the fact that it was Zach LaVine coming back, and they did have a good relationship. So I feel like the LaVine part of this kind of is one that I've thought about more today because maybe that could be what keeps those two intact and keeps the Bulls West narrative going. But to me, if Scott Perry, BJ Armstrong, Doug Christie, the new front office, that new staff are trying to kind of build for the future, it does seem like an age 36, scoring forward is one that would probably be with a tradable contract is one that would be on the go this summer.
My feel is the only way that DeMar continues to be a Sacramento King is if the Kings just feel like the only trades out there for him are essentially giving him away. He's just, even at this age, and even if the fit isn't great, he's too good of a basketball player to just give away, especially when the Kings are not committed to any sort of rebuild, right? Like, I think we both know it's pretty clear the Kings are not interested in in a blow it up type rebuild at this time. And even if they were, it's hard to even execute that because of the contracts of LaVine and Sabonis and how difficult those contracts are going to be to move. So I just don't see a scenario where the Kings just get rid of DeRozan for the sake of getting rid of him. But at the same time, looking around the league, knowing that there's the Miami Heat out there and other teams that could be interested or should be interested in a piece like DeRozan, I think the Kings can get something of relative value. They won't get as good or a better player, but you can turn DeMar DeRozan into a piece or two to add at the very least depth, which I think would be a good start for Scott Perry and his new era here in Sacramento.
Yeah, and like you put it, they don't have to move him. And I think when you look at, especially the fact that the Kings don't really have you have Malik Monk, who has proven he can be a scorer, a little ineffective and a little inconsistent at times. But if you trade DeMar DeRozan for, hypothetically, let's say they get Marcus Smart in a 3-team deal, you kind of swap, DeRozan for Smart, maybe get a second-round pick as well, whatever, what have you. Who's going to take on the scoring load for the Kings? Because now you're in a position where you have to go find someone who can be that primary scorer. And Keon Ellis is someone who's been a great 3-point shooter, not someone who really creates his own offense. Keegan Murray is someone who I think this year is going to be a huge year for him, especially if the extension isn't worked out this summer, going into what would be the fourth year of his deal. He needs to have a big year. He needs to prove he can be consistent scoring the basketball. Is that something the Kings do to try to kind of free him up? To me, that's a move you make if you're rebuilding, though. You don't put the offense in the hands of Keegan Murray, who's unproven in that point. So if you trade DeMar DeRozan for a Marcus Smart, that's great. You find a point guard who can kind of plug that hole, not a high scoring option, someone who played, I think, 53 games over the past 2 years. But now you need to find someone who's going to carry on the scoring load because, like you said, DeMar DeRozan was DeMar DeRozan last year, 20 points per game, the 3-point shooting inconsistent, but the mid-range was, his patented mid-range, and he had stretches where he was playing really great basketball. And of course, there's downsides too, which I'm sure we'll talk about as far as the ball stopping and getting late in the shot clock and the Kings not having really great possessions and, forcing shots a lot down the stretches of games happen, as well as him coming through clutch. So that's kind of what you get with him. But yeah, there is a situation where if it's a salary dump or give him away, scenario for Scott Perry, the Kings might try to say, okay, maybe we make this work. And he'd be on a somewhat expiring deal. He's partially guaranteed for 26, 27. So the Kings could also look to trade him during the season next year if nothing really presents itself this summer. But I do feel like there'll be some deals out there and teams, like you mentioned, the Clippers, other teams in contention that could use the Heat if they miss out on Kevin Durant, that could use a scoring wing. I think the Celtics were a team too that maybe could be interested if nothing else were to, by the way, the Kings just acquired a first-round pick, by the way. Just want to throw it out there. Yeah, just a little quick nugget, according to Shams. So now the Kings have a first-round pick to play with, too.
Okay.
They have a first-round pick. The Pacers are trading the 23rd pick. Hold on. I read that wrong. I read that wrong, Matt. The players...
This is to the New Orleans Pelicans.
I read that wrong. The player's name was King. The rights to Mojave King, 23rd pick.
Oh,
sorry.
Wow.
Big tease. Everyone, I'm sorry.
Well,
tease.
this is pre-recorded podcast, but my hopes just skyrocketed and then plummeted.
I'm sorry.
At the
I
same
read
time.
I read that on the corner of my eye of my iPad and was like, oh, well, there's a first round pick. No.
Well, but what's funny is, and we'll get to this later on the podcast too, because we were going to discuss, because there have been rumors out there that the Sacramento Kings are trying to move into the first round and may use DeMar DeRozan to do it. But all right, pump fake. We bid on the pump
That's my
fake.
bad.
It's okay,
Sorry,
Frankie.
buddy. I'm quick on it right now. I was about to text Brendan. We have like pre-written breaking news articles and graphics. I was about to put things in motion, but I'm a little too excited, everybody. But yeah, just kind of back to that. No first round pick. The Pacers, though, kind of crazy in the finals right now, but they're still slinging deals. You gotta be ready, man. Drafts next week. But just pretty much kind of my closing thoughts on that part of it all is that you don't have to make a move with DeRozan. And the Kings really are in a situation where, you know, the Kings have talent on their roster. Is it the right collection of talent? Hard to say. I think DeRozan, though, is kind of the head of the snake there, as far as if you move him, it creates questions for the rest of the roster as far as who's going to be scoring the basketball, who's going to be kind of their 1A option. Because as crazy as it sounds right now, you have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. LaVine's probably the quote-unquote 1A, but he had a lot of off-ball moments last year. DeRozan was the one who was running the offense, bringing the ball down, initiating everything, taking the final shot in games. I think Zach LaVine is someone who a lot of the time was having big games against teams that were under 500. So DeRozan was your kind of, crazy to say, staple after the Fox trade. That was your proven guy. So I don't think the Kings should move him unless they have a clear plan of bringing in someone who can carry that load.
Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are in full swing. We could only have one more NBA Finals game, hopefully two, if it goes to Game 7. But every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to get into the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Whether you're betting specifically on which players will show up in the biggest moments, from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to Tyrese Halliburton to Jalen Williams last night. My goodness, he was incredible. And you can combine prop bets mid-game to increase your payday as the game unfolds. Plus $200 in bonus bets. I know that sounds good to you, right? All you have to do is hit on that first $5 bet. So put $5 on anything, the best, easiest bet that you can find. Put $5 on it. When you win, you get $200 in bonus bets on FanDuel. It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. Again, if you win, $200 in bonus bets is yours. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. It'd be pretty cruel of Scott Perry and the Kings to send DeMar DeRozan and a Marcus Smart trade to Washington. Don't do that to DeMar. Don't send him to the Wizards.
They already have Chris Middleton, who kind of fits, well, not the same mold as DeRozan. DeRozan, I think, is more of a tank than Middleton, but I was looking today how it's kind of like the land of misfit toys in Washington. And I think DeRozan has a lot to offer still for a certain team. I just don't know if his fit on this offense really is the most ideal. Right. And that's, I agree, though. That's kind of cruel. Washington, maybe the only situation in the NBA that's worse than Sacramento.
Maybe. They do have at least some young players, but yeah, I think I'd still pick the Kings situation over the Wizards situation. I think Kings fans, though, we also need to be a little bit self-reflective, and this is myself included. Like, DeMar was who he's always been. The fit wasn't good. I think we can all acknowledge the fit, but I think the frustrations with DeMar DeRozan come from our own expectations, not from who DeMar is. Because again, like, and self-reflective here, because there are many podcasts that I did, Frankie, over the course of last season where I was frustrated with DeMar. Pass the ball, move the ball around, stop holding the ball for 14, 15 seconds. That can be true, but also, again, this is who DeMar's been his entire career. When you're acquiring a 35, 36-year-old who has already had a Hall of Fame career, you are adding him to what you do, not changing him to fit what you do, right? So there would absolutely still be fit concerns with DeMar DeRozan if the Kings were to proceed with him going forward. But could it work, right? And could the Kings, and by work, we have to have a realistic understanding of what work means. It doesn't mean the Kings are hovering around 50 wins like we were hoping last season. We're talking about a team that maybe can avoid the play-in and be a top 6 seed. I wonder, like, if we're being too dismissive of DeRozan as a talent, the familiarity with DeRozan and Zach LaVine, even though we know it doesn't work, or we have a pretty good understanding based on Chicago that it doesn't really work. Like, now that they've had a full year together, could DeRozan and Sabonis finally actually play in a 2-man game that for some reason they never did last season? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Kings could find a way to make another season of DeMar in Sacramento work and be ultimately at least offensively positive. I just don't think Scott Perry is trying to talk himself into that route.
And I just thinking about rolling out next year again. And I think the jokes have written themselves as far as the Kings should trade for Lonzo Ball. And,
I kind of like that though.
The Lonzo Ball.
Yeah.
Angle?
Not because of the Chicago Bulls thing, but I think Lonzo Ball would be a low risk, fun. Okay, I like the move, but not to make the Chicago Bulls joke.
Then let me ask this question, because you had De'Aaron Fox, who really was I think we say De'Aaron Fox is a playmaker. I mean, I categorize playmaker as someone who can create their own offense, create offense for others, do it in a variety of ways. As far as De'Aaron Fox, not a great consistent 3-point shooter, but he can get hot from 3. We saw him countless times have good games from 3, force a little bit, sure. But my question then is, if they were to bring back DeRozan and they were going to bring back Zach LaVine, what is the ideal type of point guard that works? Because they did have Lonzo Ball in Chicago, and granted, he was hurt a lot. He had problems, and we never got to see LaVine and DeRozan play with someone like Fox. So, I mean, Kobe White is someone in Chicago who was a high scoring guard, and maybe that's kind of, like a cheaper version of a Fox. But what is the type of guard that works? Is it someone who just really, like a Marcus Smart? Like we said Marcus Smart, but again, we're talking about the options that the Kings have been rumored to be linked to. Trae Young, which seems unrealistic. Darius Garland, who I'm not sure if Cleveland would move him, but he's going to be injured at the start of the year. We'll see, though. I mean, a defensive guard like Smart, who isn't ball dominant, I mean, is that the best kind of player to slot into a lineup that features 2 guys like LaVine and DeRozan who need the ball in their hands to be most effective?
What about Chris Paul?
Why would he come to Sacramento, though? Because okay.
Don't know.
I feel like San Antonio's probably not in Paul's future again. Probably when you have Fox and you have Castle. We'll see what else they do this summer. They are rumored to be in on KD, but probably not going to be a finalist for him. But they're trying. They're trying to build around Wemby, as they should. Bringing Chris Paul, sure, that would be interesting. You have a starting spot open. I wonder if Chris Paul is going to ring chase in his last couple of years, or if that's beneath him. I don't know. I do feel like that's something that would interest him. Hello Lakers, maybe on a minimum deal. I can already see that happening.
Block it.
Finally,
block it.
Silver's going to carry on, man. Block that.
Block it.
League minimum deal? No chance. I could talk myself into it, sure. But is that like kind of falls in the Lonzo category, a pass first guard? A pass first guard probably is what they need if they're going to roll out this DeRozan, LaVine, Keegan, Sabonis lineup that doesn't really address any of the defensive concerns or bring the length they need. But you can bring someone who can distribute the basketball more, maybe kind of find a way to, Chris Paul is an architect of offenses. He just kind of finds the right guy at the right time or directs traffic. The Kings don't really have anyone like that. I can't remember the last time the Kings really had a player that even mirrors that skill set, like Andre Miller for a minute, who played bench minutes, Gravis Vasquez, who was traded, after 10 minutes here, which crazy. He led the league in assists when he did, and the Kings got him, and we were all kind of like, wow, Kings got the assist champion. But I don't know. Like, if you bring back DeRozan and LaVine, I just wonder what the ideal point guard scenario is, because I don't think Trae Young's happening. Darius Garland would be great if they could trade for him, but then again, you're probably moving DeRozan in a deal like that.
Yeah, it's not happening.
So that leaves Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, D'Angelo Russell's a free agent. Yikes. I don't really know what the ideal fit is. So that's my concern, is that, you can go ahead and bring up the beating a dead horse phrase of, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But I don't know how you can roll out 4 of the same players being in the starting 5 or run someone like inexperienced like Devin or Keon at point guard to start the year, which probably will not happen either.
If you were to bring in Chris Paul too, by the way, I say that not because I want that. The average age of that starting lineup would be like 62, and I'm not looking forward to that. I would be Keegan Murray and a bunch of old people, and he's just looking around like, what the hell? I'm not for that. I just wonder if that is a potential route that the Kings again might talk themselves into or feel that is an option out there because they still feel that to some extent they have to or can somewhat compete in the West. By the way, I would not be excited at all going into the season if that were the case. Again, we're having this conversation both with the belief to straight up certainty that DeMar DeRozan is gone. Let's go back to the pump fake we just bid on. I
see the word king in a trade. Come on, man. That's
if there's king or Sacramento in anything that Shams puts out, I am all over it. So I don't blame you whatsoever.
My eye immediately, brain just sees it.
Yeah.
First.
But moving into the first round is a very understandable strategy for Scott Perry, not just because of the Kings don't have a first round pick and moving into the late first round, a lot easier to move into the lottery, but it would make a lot of sense for a new general manager in their first year to want to go out and draft a young talent that they feel that they can have in their new system and they can kind of mold and build. In a lot of ways, the draft is like the first move of a general manager where they can start to put their own first stamp on the organization. We've heard rumors and rumblings of the Kings trying to move into the first round. I think we're getting close to it being a likelihood that they do that on draft night to some extent. No idea who they would target. In fact, I'm going to be talking to some draft analysts here in the near future about good names in the late first round that the Kings could and should be keeping their eye on. But Frankie, does that sound appealing to you? The Kings moving into the first round and going and finding not just a young talent that Scott Perry can kind of mold into his and Doug Christie's new system, but also getting a rookie that financially you have at a set low price under contractual control over the next 4 seasons at least to add to your very pricey roster that you have right now.
I mean, that sounds like an ideal scenario if you're rebuilding or if you're kind of focusing on the future and if you're going to kind of maintain like that core of Keon, Keegan, Devin, and that first round pick and kind of sell off other pieces. That makes sense to me. But for a team that all indications are, I mean, we've all been hearing it since day one of the offseason, they have no intention of rebuilding. I wonder more if it's just trying to gather more first round picks in order to make some other move. And, maybe the Kings don't make a big swing for the fence type move. Maybe they don't. But I just find it hard to believe that drafting a 23rd, 25th, that range pick is going to directly benefit next year's team. And sure, there have been rookies before drafted late in the draft or in second rounds that have made immediate impact. And the draft is a crapshoot no matter how you slice it anyway. You don't really know if a top 5 pick is going to pan out. Kings fans know all about that. That's personally, I wonder if that is in order to kind of stockpile assets and make some kind of, to facilitate another move. Like maybe there's something else in waiting that would take another first round pick. That's just hypotheticals in my opinion. But to be honest, the other side of it would be, let's say the Kings do Kings things and they do try to roll forward with this core. They do, they don't tear it down. They go full speed ahead. They try to build around this group and retool, and they fall flat and they finish 10th or 11th next year or 12th or worse. It'd be nice to have a player that's young and has some prospects to them, because right now you do only have a couple of young players on the team. What Keon and Devin has named them. I mean, Keegan is, I think, 25, almost 26 now.
He's prime now.
Year 4, like Keegan's got to go for sure. Like not go, like be traded, but he's got to go. He's got to show us what he's got. The other two, Keon and Devin, a little time. I mean, Keon's pretty much proven in my opinion already. I think that he has a lot. He probably has someone who has high value around the league right now as far as what he can bring. 3-and-D players in the NBA. I mean, we've seen them. They're integral parts of championship teams.
Yeah,
like
his contract's so tiny, though. You can't really get anything of value for a player making $2.5 million. That's the problem with trading Keon.
Sure, but maybe they try to work something out this summer as well. I mean, it seems like that's going to be beneficial for both sides. The long-term security, the Kings, obviously, they have to decline his option for this year and then restructure with him as a restricted free agent and assume no one's going to outbid them. But I think having a young player on the team to kind of, if you're going to stockpile assets that way, sure. But it's just kind of differing. You're not picking a clear path, I think. And you're choosing to not rebuild, but you're moving into the first round and you're having a young player that you want to develop. And maybe that's hedging your bet a little bit, sure. But I just feel like that's something that I don't know if it's going to benefit them. It's not going to make them better next year. And you're not going to maximize the potential of this core if you are maintaining this core of Malik, Keegan, Domas, Levine, etc. So to me, that's just kind of what I think. It's just kind of not picking a clear path. And if they were to say tomorrow, hey, we're changing course, we feel like we're going to tear down this core, we're going to rebuild, use our first round picks, not going to move them, get another first round pick this year, play Keegan heavy minutes, have Keon start all year. Devin's going to be the point guard on day one. Sure. Like, get the 25th pick and let's see what can happen. But if this team's expecting to be in the playoffs next year, I feel like you might need to kind of part with some first round picks, especially if you're getting more. If you're adding more the week of the draft in a year that's going to probably see a lot of movement around the NBA. We've already seen some movement in the Desmond Bane deal and how many first round picks. Don't even get me started on the Kings could have gotten more on a certain deal in February. Desmond Bane's a good player. I would think that Fox is a little bit better, but apparently not. 4 first round picks and a pick swap say different. So
my comment section is going to yell at you. Be careful. They already yelled at me.
But why is that wrong to say that the Kings probably should have gotten more?
Move on, Frankie. Move on.
Desmond Bane just got 4 first round picks, man.
He's gone, Frankie. Move on. Even though we're watching Tyrese Halliburton in the NBA Finals and Luka Doncic, we talk about every damn day. But move on, Frankie.
They can yell. I can't hear them anyway. It's fine.
Hey,
they're gonna yell at me for the pump fake anyway. So
that's true. Jake LaRavia. You want to say Jake LaRavia back?
Yeah, I think he fits the mold, right? I mean, it seems like Doug Christie and him had a really great relationship. It seems like the Kings, if you're going to have young players to build, like we're talking about, if you're going to build for the future, Jake LaRavia is kind of a guy who showcased some potential, had some injury problems in his career, some inconsistencies. I think that's why Memphis didn't pick up his 4th year of his rookie year contract because of his inconsistent play, but he can defend multiple positions. The Kings were throwing him on James Harden in Los Angeles. I mean, he's athletic. He can shoot. He shot 40%, I think, during his time with the Kings, or 44%, something really, really strong. But it's all about the contract. I think they're limited to 5.3 they can offer him for the first year of that new deal. And someone could just come in and offer him a 2-year, $14 million deal. And that's probably curtains on it. So,
okay, go ahead. Go ahead. If you want to make him a $7 million per year player, go ahead.
Which I don't think he is yet. And that might benefit the Kings because, especially with Keon, I feel like teams are going to be more kind of prioritizing other moves and maybe spending more money elsewhere than just kind of around the edge fringe guys. And that's no disrespect to Keon or LaRavia, but right now those are kind of guys who are depth pieces. I don't know if those guys will be playing big rotation minutes on, Indiana, OKC for sure, but other teams that are in the conference finals or so on that are in contention every year. Keon more so than Jake for sure. But I feel like that kind of makes it more likely that the Kings could reunite with him. But it seems like you love playing for Doug. I know that those quotes have been going around all over the place, how much you like playing for Doug. And Doug is a defensive guy. And I think that he wants more hard-nosed players like that. And I don't want to keep bringing up Marcus Smart, but I keep believing more and more that might be the guy that they look at more because defensive player of the year, someone who is gritty, not afraid to get in someone's face. And the Kings, they've kind of lacked some grit over the years. And I feel like that's something that the Kings need more of, and Jake has that as well.
We'll wrap up with this, Frankie, because you and I are very similar in a lot of ways. We both have the privilege of doing this for a living professionally, and we come from backgrounds of being fans of this team and growing up in this area. One of the things I've said a lot this offseason is I need the Kings to make me excited again. I've actually told Kings executives this to their face. Give me something to be excited about. Give Sacramento something to be hopeful about again. And I know a lot of Kings fans feel the same way. we've had these conversations about these big names like Trae Young, Ja Morant, LaMelo Ball, and not that we all expected the Kings to be in or execute any of those trades, but where do you stand on give me another star to replace De'Aaron Fox to be excited about versus, hey, I can be patient for a year. This is Scott Perry's first year. Make the Marcus Smart move. Make a kind of minor DeMar DeRozan move that nobody's going to talk about on ESPN, right? These moves that at least start to set the foundation for Scott Perry and Doug Christie's new team identity. They might not be very good next year. They're probably going to be a play-in team that gets bounced again, but there's building blocks towards the future. Where do you fall on the, like, I would love another star to cover and to get me excited versus, as impatient as I am as a Kings fan, this is Scott Perry's first year. I'm going to give him the time that he deserves as a GM.
I mean, it kind of, to go back to what I said a minute ago, it's kind of like picking a lane and running with it. And I feel like if we're hearing the team has no inclination of selling, then you probably need to go star hunting, and you probably need to go and get the best player available that you can, because if you're going to not move Domas, and that's your player right now, who's kind of like the anchor of this group right now, making $40+ million for the next, I think, 3 seasons, you probably need to make a move right now that's going to maximize. I keep using the word maximize because you need to maximize the potential of this group. Mm-hmm. And Zach LaVine, is he a player the Kings could maybe flip using those first round picks as a sweetener and bring back someone that's on a larger scale contract? That's like probably the biggest. I mean, arguably, I don't know if you agree. That's probably the only way they could pull off one of these moves that we're talking about. They'd have to move one of Sabonis or LaVine for the Trae Youngs, for the Garlands, for, I'm not going to name Giannis, but sure, for hypothetical purposes, a Giannis, sure. Like any of those players that are making a max contract, you have to move one of your own and probably part with first round picks, because Domas and LaVine are not coveted players right now. Domas probably a little more than LaVine. I'm sure there's a market where someone would trade for a center like that. Yeah. But again, you're not going to get a haul of picks in return for these guys. So that's why I can look at it as lateral moves, and you need to make a move to bring in a guard that's going to make that exciting difference. And I think personally, Matt, I would, as impatient as I would hate it for the fan base, and I'd hate it for us having to cover it and be there, more for the fan base, obviously, tearing it down and rebuilding would suck. We've covered this team before. We've been fans of this team when they've been horrible. It sucks the life out of you when you pour your time into this team and they don't really reciprocate or give you any love back. It's horrible. We saw it for almost 2 decades. Going that route and saying to the fan base, okay, we're going to tear it down, would not be received well. So I understand why they're doing it, but I do wonder if they'd be better for it if they just went and ripped the Band-Aid off. And if they did trade Domas and see what they could get back, if they did move Malik Monk and free up guard minutes for Devin Carter, if that's one who they truly believe in, that wasn't a Scott Perry guy. Now I keep having to remind myself that Devin Carter was not a Scott Perry guy, so maybe he's someone that might move as well. But I just feel like if you are going to, back it up and say we're not rebuilding, you kind of have to make a big move, and you can't just go and bring in a Marcus Smart or bring in a D'Angelo Russell and plug them in at point guard and say, okay, we're going to hold on to DeRozan because him and LaVine are tight. We're going to see if Keegan Murray can make another leap this year. Domas, Malik back in a 6-man of the year role. I mean, I just don't think that makes you that much of a better team at all. And arguably, you're worse. So to me, it makes more sense to tear it down. But at the same time, if they were to make a trade right now and bring in an all-star point guard or make a surprise move and bring in a high-scoring wing, I'd say, sure, I'm intrigued, because this team as currently built, they're not horrible. They're not going to be the 15th seed if they keep everything as is and everyone stays healthy. They'll be a team that's in the mix for that 8, 9, 10, maybe even 7 seed in the West. But it's just hard for me to say they're going to get back to where they were before, which is that kind of top 5, top 6 team in the West that they were 2-3 years ago, without making a move that's going to surprise a lot of people. And it seems like Scott's thinking big. It seems like that he's trying to make it the Kings kind of at the front of people's minds again. But at the same time, they don't really have much to work with as far as attractable assets to move. So can they do that with DeRozan? We'll see. Are they going to try to kind of bring in a guard and hope that they hit on someone that's going to be less expensive? They might, but if it comes down to this current core and banking on them being better than last year while keeping things mostly intact, I just might a little low. Expectations are a little low there.
The problem is being mid, and the vast majority of the playoff drought, the Kings were mid. Only one of those years were they the worst team in the league. Now, to be fair, they should have gotten the number 1 pick.
Should have gotten Blake Griffin.
But instead they got number 4, which was Tyreek. Hey, you won Rookie of the Year that fun season. Hey, 25-5, hooray. Reek Roy, yeah. But I think the frustrating part is I think we look at this roster and think you're on a one-way path to just being mid again. And
it's like the Hawks and the Hawks and the Heat? They battle out in the 9-10 game every year. The Kings are going to be that team that's in the 9. It's 2 years in a row already. And if they make it one more time, they're just going to be that team that say Kings are 9-10 game again. It's their inaugural or their yearly game. It's just going to become the Sacramento Kings game.
Great. All right. Well, now that we've depressed everybody and bid on a pump fake from Shams, let's wrap this
up. I saw the word king and I got excited.
I got excited too. And hey, I'm just saying, keep an eye out for Shams tweets, because I don't think it might happen on draft night, but I don't think the Kings acquiring a first round pick is far-fetched at all in this draft here, which we'll see next week, which is crazy. It's that soon. Frankie, thank you so much for taking the time, my man. We'll chat very, very soon, and we'll see what Perry and the Kings decide to do. It's fun to talk about all these hypothetical scenarios because we have no clue what the direction of this organization is. So we'll find out together, huh?
No pump fakes next time. Thank you, Matt. Sorry, everybody, but we'll see you next week at the draft, huh? Let's see what happens.